speedrunning my answers to the 2024 AP Environmental Science FRQs so you can see how you did part 2. Starting off in letter A, the ecological change over time is going to be secondary succession. Go to letter B, stage where the pioneer species first appeared, that's going to be stage 2. We go to letter C, those lichen are going to secrete acids that are going to chemically weather those rocks, releasing some nutrients, breaking the rocks down into smaller and smaller fragments. Those small rock fragments are going to combine with the dead bodies of those lichen when they die, and we're going to get eventually the formation of kind of shallow, rocky soil there. We go down to letter D, cultural ecosystem service. We could have ecotourism from fees paid to get into parks that are taking place in these forests. In letter E, we need a testable hypothesis. That's going to be that a forest that's been clear cut or had its trees removed will have a higher stream temperature than a forest that's intact or hasn't been clear cut. The independent variable is going to be the presence of trees or whether or not the forest has been clear cut. For G, the purpose of forest A is to serve as a control, so it's going to give us a background stream temperature in a forest that hasn't been clear cut, so we can compare it to forest B and see how much clear cutting impacts the stream temperature. In letter H, when we clear cut the forest, we're going to reduce the shade that the foliage from those trees was providing. So there's going to be more solar radiation that's now hitting the water, and that water is going to absorb that solar radiation, and that's going to heat it. And letter I, if we had a golf course, we're probably going to increase nutrient concentrations, especially nitrogen in the water, because there's going to be an increase in nutrients applied to the greens on the golf course, and that's going to be washed by runoff into that body of water. So that's going to lead to eutrophication, and that's going to kind of segue into J, where we're probably going to have aquatic organisms that live in that lake dying due to suffocation, as the eutrophication causes an algae bloom. The algae then die and are consumed by bacteria or microbes in the water that are going through aerobic respiration, using up a lot of oxygen, causing the dissolved oxygen levels in that water to drop. On to FRQ number 2, in letter A here, we're going to have the year 1700. In letter B, the relationship is that as we increase the grazing land, it's going to decrease the grasslands, and that's because grasslands are ideal for ruminants like cattle that are often doing the grazing. In letter C, we're going to have topsoil erosion. In letter D, this hypothesis is going to be refuted. If you're decreasing the percentage of forests, you're decreasing these ecosystems that sequester carbon from the atmosphere via photosynthesis, stored as biomass, especially when you consider that you're probably replacing it with croplands, which lead to net carbon release. I don't think you need that second part. It's probably overkill, but it is what appears to be happening based on these data. We get down to letter E. We're going to have an increase in urban stormwater runoff. That's going to carry with it sediments from impermeable surfaces like parking lots and roads into those waters, increases turbidity, decreases sunlight and photosynthesis in the waters. Again, the second part might be overkill, but never hurts to add extra detail if you have it. In letter F, we could mitigate that problem by replacing impermeable pavement like parking lots with permeable pavement. That's going to allow groundwater to be recharged by that precipitation, so it can seep through the permeable pavement, infiltrate the groundwater, the soil and the groundwater underneath, rather than becoming runoff. Letter G, if you remove lots of forest from your farmland areas, you're going to have fewer bobcats because they are secondary or tertiary consumers, depending on what they're eating. So they're getting only like 1% to 0.1% of the energy from the producer level. So they need a pretty large area of producers in order to be supported, to get enough energy to feed all of the prey that they need to then eat. So basically, long-winded way of saying, when you decrease that forested area, you decrease the food resources for their prey, which decreases the bobcat population. A disadvantage of having just a small population of bobcats reintroduced is low genetic diversity, higher susceptibility to inbreeding depression, which is when closely related family members reproduce with one another, which increases the likelihood of deleterious or harmful mutations being passed on to offspring. It's going to be hard to sustain the bobcat population that way. A solution to improve the chances of this bobcat reintroduction being successful is building habitat corridors connecting these isolated segments of forest that the prompt says the bobcats will be introduced into. That allows for better gene flow between the populations and just gives them overall larger habitat range to find food, find mates. In letter J, we'd have to actually tweak our answer in letter I to be habitat corridors that are natural bridges over roads for the answer that I'm thinking of for letter J, which is then that's going to decrease the likelihood of bobcat vehicle collisions and other animal vehicle collisions because they can use the habitat corridor, the natural bridge, to get over the road. I don't know if that's a little bit of a stretch. You could also just say that the habitat corridors are going to allow other species to move between these segmented sections of forest, which allows them to maintain their population sizes as well. Finally, on to FRQ number 3. In letter A here, we could use cacti or succulents. Maybe you could say drought tolerant or low rainfall tolerant grasses as well, native grasses. In letter B, this is also going to have the added benefit of giving native pollinator species food resources, and then they can continue to support the other native plants in the area that they also pollinate. Letter C, a prescribed burn is just going to burn dead biomass on the forest floor, which is going to reduce future natural wildfires that start through a lightning strike or something from having as much fuel, which prevents them from reaching as large of a size and spreading as far, since a lot of that fuel has been consumed by the prescribed burn. A disadvantage here is we could kill unintended organisms in the process, especially small animals that just can't get away from the fire. They may die, which could decrease their population sizes. And then for the math, I'm just going to put the answers up on the screen here. Good luck, everybody. I hope that you thought like mountains and write like scholars, and I hope you get the exam score you're hoping for in July when exam scores come out. Until then, as always, think like a mountain, write like a scholar, and enjoy the end of your school year.